Hey, how we doing out there, everybody? My name is John Denton. I hope everybody is staying safe out there. What a crazy time that we're living in right now. As promised, after the reaction to the Weeknd's After Hours, which you can see on my channel, the support has been crazy for that video so far. I wanted to take some more time with the album and produce just a conversational review. These aren't written out, scripted reviews that I'm going to read out to camera. It's a little bit different to that. And I must say that with time spent with the album, it's only got better for me, guys. And don't worry about me touching my face, hand sanitizer, everything's fine. When I was listening to it, through that first reaction, I really felt like some of those songs were going to benefit from multiple listens. And I think we'd had the benefit of that by experiencing tracks like Blinding Lights, which on first listen I thought was cool, but somehow even after 20, 30, 40, 50 times I've heard it, because it's played all the time on the radio over here, and as well as just generally from listening on the album, it still manages to get better. The texture and structure of that song really does just get better over time. And I think with After Hours as a project, we're seeing the Weeknd, we're seeing Abel maturing in his sound and probably just maturing as a person, as everybody does. But the danger often when an artist gets to that point, when they've released a certain amount of music, when they have a certain sound, when they've attracted a fan base, when they have certain motifs that people associate with them, that they either get stuck in those patterns or they try and veer off too significantly because they're bored personally and no longer connect with the original music. And I think people have been a little worried about the Weeknd falling into that trap. I know a lot of people weren't too keen on the direction that Starboy went, and while My Dear Melancholy certainly brought things back into a direction that people liked, when you hear a track like Blinding Lights and its pop 80s synth sensibilities, you're potentially worried about the new album not really delivering the kind of dark, synthy, moody R&B that, made the Weeknd such a huge superstar. And while I think it's true to say that After Hours as a project doesn't have the absolute raw immediacy of Trilogy, particularly House of Balloons, it probably doesn't have the raw immediacy of the music on Kissland as well, I think it's fair to say I do think this is a maturing of the sound, a collection of songs that really do bring the different elements of the Weeknd together, along with incredible production, audio engineering, mixing, mastering. It really does sound like a money project, which of course it is. You're ending up with an album that does actually describe the Weeknd's state of mind in a far more complex and musically interesting way than his old work. That's not to say it's better. I still think personally I probably prefer to just listen to the raw brilliance of House of Balloons, just because every single song on that record is so unbelievably good, but he can't just keep trying to make that over and over again. So even as we start this record off with the gentle, textured Alone Again, which at first listen, again, didn't have the immediacy. The melody of the chorus isn't perhaps as hard-hitting as something like Wicked Games. A tough comparison for any song, to be fair. Again, this is music that works better once you know when the changes are going to hit, once you know when the drops are going to hit, once you know the melodies. It works better, it gets in between your DNA a little bit better. And you end up with this gorgeous, gentle opening to the album, which really describes Abel's kind of state of heartbreak, state of loss, state of almost a lack of confidence and a frailty, which we're kind of not so used to seeing. We've seen heartbreak and we've obviously seen arrogance and confidence from the Weeknd and drug-fueled hazes, but not necessarily that kind of vulnerability and frailty that we do see multiple times on this album. And the album seems to be broken up into sections as well. I mean, I know some people have taken it, and I've read it in my comments on the reaction, that it's almost like a story of his mental state throughout a relationship, whether it's with Bella Hadid or, a figurative relationship, where, at first he's suffering through loss, and then he's going through the kind of more depraved hedonistic stage, and then he's eventually coming to acceptance. I've heard other interpretations where he's talking about, dying at the end of the Fantastic Faith. But however you want to interpret it, musically it does take you on a journey, and it does feel like the album is in different sections. So you start off with Alone Again, Too Late, Hardest to Love, and Scared to Live. Do see the Weeknd very much in a softer, gentler area than perhaps we've seen him before. And Scared to Live is an absolutely gorgeous song, but it's very much a pop ballad. Just even the way the notes are structured, even the way the key it's sung in, even the way the melody works. But it's a pop song that has real substance. It's a pop song that gets better on every listen. It's a pop song that actually, given the Elton John sample in there, is actually reminiscent of some of Elton John's older work, which does still stand the test of time. Then you move into the slightly more Toronto sound of the brilliant, gorgeous Snowchild, which I personally wouldn't have minded a Drake feature on. I'm absolutely fine with the fact that there are no features on this record, but here we see Abel reminiscing about his time being poorer, being homeless in fact, being a teenager in Toronto, and then moving through his current state of mind as we move into Escape from LA, and how he's been and existing within that kind of LA fakeness. We've heard that in many songs before, but Abel brings texture to the music as well that really does help to kind of summarize and surmise exactly how he's thinking, along with the lyrics and very specific and graphic descriptions of an incident that may or may not have happened at his studio. But again, this is a song that you can take as figuratively as well, just about, you know, the woman that pulling up to the studio. It may have been something that happened specifically, it may just be a general state of mind about LA generally. And as he moves from that, we get the slightly harder edge. Metro Boomin starts to get involved. And by the way, can we just give a shout out to that man? An absolutely phenomenal electronic musician, one of the best electronic musicians in the world. I know he's a producer, and that's kind of the tag that he's given, but like, we must give this man credit. He is an incredible musician in creating mood and atmosphere, as well as killer beats that just get your body moving. And then Heartless, which we've heard plenty of times, is a good version of that, but Faith just takes it to a completely different level. You've got that unbelievable line that if I OD, I want you to OD right beside me, which really, really knocked me for six when I first heard it on the record, as you see on the reaction. But that just hits more and more and more, and then when it breaks down at the end, and you know, he's ultimately potentially OD'd himself, or you know, that part of his personality has died, whatever your interpretation is, and we get this somber, slowed down ending as we move into the next part of the record. I'm really seeing Faith as kind of this center point for the album, this point where Abel's maturity in his sound, his restraint as a songwriter is really coming to the fore. And it actually gives Blinding Lights a different context, given the lyrical content where he's talking about the blinding lights at the end of Faith, talking about being the back of the flashing car, all that sort of stuff. It really does give that song a different context. But as a radio banger, it still works, as does In Your Eyes, which when I first heard it, I wasn't too keen on. The kind of bouncy, very 80s, and obviously it's very 80s inspired throughout this record. But kind of a bouncy, synthy, of course, 80s number that you might expect in like a John Hughes movie or something like that. But again, when married to the music video and given further and further listens, it really does have more substance than your average pop track. It's definitely not my favourite track on the album. It's still probably my least favourite track on the album, but that's not to say I don't like it. However, the album does then really go back to being a tour de force with a track like Save Your Tears. Almost like a kind of indie rock track driven by synth again, something that you might have heard from Future Islands, or even something that you might have heard from sort of early 2000s American indie. Even reminiscent of the very, very underrated Summer Games by Drake, which is on the Scorpion record, which I've never really heard anyone talk about, but that's one of my favourite tracks from that record. Very moody, very, very nostalgic, very, very cinematic, which is another word that you can definitely use to describe this project overall. We've got Kevin Parker from Tame Impala, or Tame Impala himself, involved in Repeat After Me, which I didn't realise on first listen, but then going back and listening multiple times, the influence is so clear. You can hear his sonic motifs throughout that, and that actually becomes one of the stronger tracks on the record. While not necessarily something that you put on repeat yourself to listen to over and over again like some of the other tracks, it really is such a gorgeous textured song, but Kevin Parker is just a master at that, and I would love to hear those guys work together again on anything, really. And then we cap things off with a fantastic After Hours, which is probably along with Faith, the standout track on the album. We had heard it before, and it's almost a shame that we'd heard it before, because while I loved it as a single, I loved listening to it individually, to have that as a surprise on the album as the title track, that drop would have hit even harder, because we'd have had, what, 12 songs to get there, 50 odd minutes of music to get there, and when that beat drops in there, it is killer, but it's kind of a shame that we'd heard it before. But I can't hold that against the project. An amazing 6-minute masterpiece of electronic music with Abel flexing his vocal range while riding over that very almost trance-like beat that kicks in at the end. And then we end the album in another gentle, somber way with Until I Bleed Out, which is, again, showing frailty, showing vulnerability, showing remorse and regret even. But again, musically, sonically, really on a different level. I really, really love this project. I know so many Weeknd fans do as well. I have heard some negativity around it, and I do believe, well, of course, I just respect, while I of course respect everything anybody might have to say about the record, I definitely think there is an element that his early work is so immediate and so good. It's so good that it's really, really difficult for anything he produces now to live up to the first time that you heard House of Balloons, or maybe the fifth time that you heard House of Balloons, or Thursday, or some of Kissland, or even The Hills, or something like that, just because those tracks grind through the very sinews of your body. But I do think on repeated listen, 7th, 8th times through, we're blessed with a very, very beautiful, textured, mature pop album from one of the best artists on the planet, and something that really is going to stand the test of time, something that has the substance, something that has the structure, and something that has the money and the audio engineering as well to really, really stand the test of time. An album that's going to be enjoyed for many, many, many years. My score for this one is a strong, not to copy Fantano's style, but a strong 9 out of 10. I couldn't go all the way to the top marks because I just don't think it is at that absolute pinnacle game-changing level, but a strong 9 out of 10 score from me for After Hours. A brilliant album, will definitely be in my top albums of the year, probably top 5 come the end of the year. We shall see. It's going to be a big year. It is going to be a big year. We shall see, but it's definitely up there already right now. As always, keen to get your thoughts on the project below. Please let me know your scores. Please let me know your thoughts, favourite songs, all that sort of stuff. Please let me know about this format as well. When I react to a big album, I do intend to always do a follow-up review. Obviously, that will be determined by views. If the views die on the follow-up reviews, then they probably won't get done. But regardless, it's really nice to be able to revisit a project, listen to it properly after the reaction, and then talk about it again. I do think that's important. As much as I love music reactions and I will always do them, I've always got it in the back of my brain that I'm perhaps not doing certain records justice, especially when I'm going in blind like everybody. When I'm doing an older album that already has stuff written about it, that already generally has a mood about it, even if I haven't heard it, I do bring some of that into the reaction. It's not completely blind. It's impossible to be completely blind to say, like, To Pimp a Butterfly, and sometimes I've even heard songs off those projects. Whereas when we go into something brand new like this, it is completely blind, as it is with everybody. So I do want to make sure I'm giving these albums, giving these projects enough time to really give them my consideration, and it's just fun to chat. And let me know your thoughts about these slightly more conversational reviews. You know, I've been a writer for 15 years. I could write out a script and read it out, but I just kind of prefer to do it a bit more naturally like this, and then ideas come as I'm talking and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Shout out XOTWOD, XOTWJD. Shout out to everybody for the support on this crazy Weeknd season. Obviously, the Weeknd season will never die on this channel. There'll always be stuff done. I know there's music that I haven't heard. There'll be new music videos as well, we hope, that I can do, and hopefully new music. I heard he dropped something on his Instagram the other day that nobody's heard yet, so fingers crossed. Guys, thank you very much. Please do subscribe if you're new. I want to see as many likes as possible on this video as well. Stay safe out there. I've been your Denton. I'll catch you on the next video.